There is a jurisdiction issue, and the federal government fully understands it. That is why they get everybody that they want to control under contract. Then it becomes contractual law. If you don't, even a county, if a county signs a federal contract and then the county does not abide by it, guess what? They yank the county into court and they say, look, judge, it says right here that the county will do this. And the judge goes, yep, you're dang right. And makes the county do exactly what they're supposed to do, according to contract. But if they weren't into contract like my dad, then and this is exactly what happened, okay? What happened was my dad has no contract with the federal government. He's standing on preemptive rights, saying that this is state land, not federal land, according to the Constitution of the United States, right? So they finally just say, you know what? There's not a whole lot we can do. Let's just go down there and take him off the land.
So, what were they trying to do?
Well, let me tell you what they did, and then I'll try to, because they came down with 200 fully armed men, surrounded the ranch with snipers, surveillance equipment, and locked down the whole land to everybody, the whole community. Okay? And remember what the purpose of government is? To protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They came down and put lives in tremendous danger, took away liberties, and was threatening the pursuit of happiness and the ownership of property, even destroying property. Okay? They came down and did this, right? And I'll just go through a real quick succession or real quick timeline of what happened. So they came down. March 27th, they set up their compound, and I'm talking about a military base, a full military base. I don't know if any of you saw this, what it was. It had a perimeter, had a command center, it had intelligence, communications, towers, everything. Okay, they came down, 200 strong men strong, fully armed, tactical gear, full weapons, everything, just like an army. It was that we found out that it was a special team that was built, that put together in Oregon to do the heavy hitting for who? The Bureau of Land Management. Okay, came down. That's who came. On Saturday the 5th, March 5th, they actually started gathering cattle. And they locked up the whole land and put a perimeter fully with armed agents all the way, the whole way. All over the land. They shut it completely down. They began to gather the cattle with helicopters. They were separating the calves from the mothers. It was 100-degree weather. They injured, killed, shot. They even shot them from the helicopter. Okay, that's what was going on. Okay, and I could get into tons of detail. I could tell the story for probably 3 hours plus. But Sunday goes around. My brother's filming them. And my other brother and their wives and children. I have to be careful to say wives, you know. Their wives and their anyway. I am LDS. So
their respective wives.
Right.
Maybe you can say that.
Anyway, they were there and they were standing on the side of the road, and my brother was filming because they could see the vehicles up there and them taking the cattle out of there. So they thought, well, we're going to get some video here. What happens? They set 4 snipers up on the hill, completely pointing down at the family. They come down, about 20 of them, and literally forced the family into the vehicles by gunpoint while they're beating my brother to the ground.
Oh.
They completely beat him to the ground, kicked him, tromped on him, sicked their dogs on him, and we're talking about 20 men at once gaining on him.
And they threw your sister to the ground. Was it your sister?
That was my aunt, but that was yet to come.
Oh.
So that's what they did. That was on Sunday. They took him to their compound and just mocked him. Said, look, we got one of Cliven's sons. We got one of Cliven's for like 4 hours. Then they take him to a jail in Henderson and interrogate him all through the night. And then they just throw him out on the street. Like, we're done with you. That was it. Okay? That was Sunday. Tuesday rolls around. Yes.
Were you there or just...
I wasn't there yet. You know? And I wish I had a lot of time, but Yes.
Is your brother going to sue him for the abuse that they gave him?
Not at this point, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Okay.
Hope he does eventually.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why. Because people are like, well, "That's wrong. It's got to be right, right? It's got to be right." And I'll tell you why. There's a lot of things that happen, but I came into town that Monday, and my dad told me to prepare for having a lot of people. That's all my job was. I was supposed to. I prepared meals and brought it to feed 200 people for 7 days, and that's what I did. Okay, set up camp. Anyway, so we did that. Tuesday rolls around. They came down on two boys from the community that were playing on the river, and by this time we had about 30 or 40 protesters up on the top there, and they could see them. And so they went down there and actually stood between the boys and the federal agents and basically backed them off. So Wednesday rolls around. We see they'd been now gathering cattle for 5 days in that area, and we see coming off the mountain, they're coming with a dump truck and a backhoe and 13 armed vehicles escorting that dump truck and backhoe.
Oh.
Okay? It's a convoy coming off the mountain. You can see it. So the protesters decided what they would get down there on the road, and when they got on the road, they were gonna their signs and you guys get out of here. We don't want you here, and protest, right? Well, as they come on the road, they make like this perimeter, and then they get out of their vehicles, right? And they start. They have their tasers, and a lot of you probably seen the video. That's where the video was, right? And why did they get out of their vehicles? Does anybody know why? Have you heard of the First Amendment areas that they put up?
Yeah.
Earlier, they had set up these perimeters they called it the First Amendment area. And you only had the right to protest in those First Amendment areas, according to them. And if you protested outside of that area, you were breaking the law.
Which law?
Well, their code.
Their law.
Their code. Their administrative law. Exactly. So they got out to confront us because we were not in our First Amendment area. And they were saying they were reading off this code. That's why they beat my brother down too. Because he wasn't expressing his First Amendment rights in the First Amendment area. And they actually would say this code to us. Code, and then they have their tasers, and we're confronting them, basically telling them to go away, this and that. And then we're all there. You've probably maybe seen the video, I don't know. They snuck up from behind and took my Aunt Margaret and literally just hip checked her, slammed her right on the ground, right on the asphalt.
And she was pregnant.
No, that was not my
another
aunt.
aunt.
Yeah, okay. So they did that, and then of course the crowd just went crazy. The protesters were just like, and just give you an idea, there's about 35 of them. And there's probably about 40 to 50 of us. So it's not, and they've got their dogs, and they got their tasers. And so then what they did is my sister, Stetsy, is pregnant. They sicked their dog on her. Okay?
Where are you, in Nevada? Or?
We're in Nevada.
Yeah.
We're down by the ranch, on the ranch, but down by the ranch house. We're about 2 miles from the ranch house there. And then, as we began to protest, and we're protesting, they hit me with a taser. And it hit me, the first one I think hit me in the neck and in the chest. And it's a 50,000 volt taser.
Ooh.
And it puts your whole body into convulsions. And I turn and your body is convulsing. I turn and kind of step away, and I end up getting one of them out. And as soon as you get one of them, because they arc across to each other, so as soon as you get one of them out, it stops, of course, right? And then we went back, began to protest. They sicked a dog on me a couple times. I ended up kicking the dog, getting it back away from me, and then they tased me again. So, and then by this time, everybody's kind of getting wise, and they're starting tearing them off. So then we stand again. They tased me a third time, and they're tearing them off. And they shot a fourth time, but the fourth time it didn't hit me. Now I've been asked multiple times, told that, every time someone gets tased, that they go to the ground. They get hit and they go to the ground, And they ask, well, why didn't you go to the ground? And at first I was kind of being a little funny, so I didn't know I was supposed to, right? But then I want to express to you something that was the real reason why I did not go to the ground. Okay? And it is something that is very, very, I feel it very important to communicate, but it's also a little more difficult to communicate. Because the battle that was going on up there was not just a battle over land or cattle or whatever. It was a very spiritual battle that was happening. It was a battle between good and between evil. And it was also something that the Lord was very aware of. And maybe sometime I'll be able to give you tell you and bear more of my testimony of that. And how we didn't know as a family how in the world we were ever going to get through this. We gathered together as a family thinking that was going to be the last week we were going to be alive. We were told by the Bureau of Land Management, by their representatives, that if we resisted, it would be another Waco or a Ruby Ridge. We were told that by them.
Oh my
Okay?
gosh.
But we chose to stand anyway. And we didn't know whether we were going to lose our lives or not. But we were also told that the Lord would fight our battle after we were there, and after we were there for a short period of time, and we've been pleading to the Lord to please give us a way to help us to get out of this. And the Lord told us that He would give us a way. Okay? And I knew that, and my family knew that, and we understood that we did not know how in the world a small family that with very little influence would be able to take on the most powerful government ever known to man and win. But the Lord had a plan. And we understood that. And so I tell you, now we're back to the tasing. I get tased, they hit me in the neck, and they hit me in the chest the first time. And when I look back at that experience, my whole body was convulsing. And it even messes with your brain. Okay? But I felt completely sustained from my legs on down. I felt like I had solid, to this day I could feel how my feet were solid on the ground. And how there was no way, when people said you fall on the ground, like, I was not even close to falling on the ground. There's no way I was going to fall on the ground. They hit me a second time, the same thing. The third time, the same thing. My feet were on the ground. And I feel that I was sustained. My legs, the strength of my legs were sustained. And maybe this will give you a little experience or a little understanding of why. Those people, and if you haven't saw the video, I invite you to go see the videos. They're out there. But those people, the ones that were really pressing forward and really sticking the dogs on it, the tasing and throwing my aunt on the ground and sticking them on my sister who's 4 months pregnant. Those individuals, the only thing that they respect is strength and power. Okay? Strength and power. That's all that they live and thrive for that. And I'm just going to say that. I honestly believe that. Okay? And the Lord gave me strength to stand in front of them. And as soon as after they had realized that tasing wasn't going to work, I began to say, who's in charge here? And I'm raising my hands up, literally like this. Who's in charge here? Who's in charge here? And none of them are taking responsibility for being in charge. So then I start saying, whoever's in charge here, you have to get your men in your vehicle and you have to leave. This is not going to end. And I'm standing there in front of them. And they have tried everything to get me on the ground. And they start listening to me. They actually start moving and rotating to the vehicles, and they actually start getting in the vehicles. Because what was the next step? What was their next step?
Shoot.
They were going to pull. Did you know that if you when a law enforcer is taught that when he tases a person 3 times and they don't go down, they go to lethal weapons. Okay? That's what happens. And that the Lord was protecting us. I believe that completely. The Lord was protecting us. He sustained us and give us strength. And they respected that in a demented way. It doesn't matter. But they respected that, and they began to get in their vehicles, and they ended up leaving. And they left. And there was also, the people at that time understood that they had the strength. When people unite, they had the strength to do what was right and to be together. And we hugged each other, and we cheered, and we cried because we were able to actually see them leave. And we stood our ground. We did what we knew was right. And then after that, they completely left that whole area. They went back, and they started reevaluating things in their camp. There's some other crazy things that went on. But they decided that they would gather way away, as far away from the protesters as they could. They went clear into Moapa. They began to gather over there. Well, the people went over there to protest them over there too. And there was 3 boys that crossed their imaginary line, and they beat them down and beat them up too. They're actually from up here somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
What news services were there? Who was covering it?
By this time, well, on Wednesday there wasn't hardly any. There was some of, but like Pete Santilli was there, and I never heard that name until that week, but he was there, and he was actually down there, and so he filmed a lot of when we were getting tased and all that. But there wasn't, Channel 8 from Las Vegas was there, but they were so slow, they didn't realize what was going on. By the time it was all almost over before they even filmed it. But after that video went viral, and then people started to come from all across the world, or the country. Well, but we started getting a response from all across the world. Like, for example, when hundreds of people are coming, right? They're coming from all over. And they're coming, and they're basically coming to, usually they would come to a family member, and they'd be like, I came from California. I felt like I needed to come. I don't know why, but I'm here. I came from New Hampshire. I just drove 44 hours. I'm here. I came from Arizona. I came from Florida. I came from Minnesota. I mean, all over the country they're coming, and they were saying the same thing. I felt like I needed to be here. I don't know why. I saw what happened. I felt like I needed to be here. Okay? Remember, the first of the week, we were promised that something would happen to preserve our lives, right? And that to make this right. And the Lord's touching these people's hearts from all over the country. And they're coming.
I saw them coming in. I was going to California when they were coming in. I was going south, and the traffic coming north from Vegas, there was a parking lot all the way.
Yeah.
And it was a mess. They were parked on the 15. They had all kinds of law enforcement out there, and like SWAT teams. And it was crazy.
That would have been Saturday, yeah. So
Saturday.
they're coming literally. So
how many people came all together?
Well,
protesters?
a lot of at first, what was happening is a lot of people were showing their support, and then during the week they'd come, they'd be here for half a day, then they'd leave, and we were getting after Wednesday we'd get 400 or 500 people in the evening, and there would be a couple hundred people there all the time, right? But then we started saying, well, hey, everybody come on Saturday. Everybody come on Saturday, and we're calling the governor. And we're pleading for them, the sheriff, to stand and do their job, and to protect the people, which is their job, right? Protect their life, liberty, and property. That's their job. That's what their whole purpose is. And here, there's people that their lives are in threat, and their liberties. The people of the community couldn't even go into the hills. It was completely locked down, and they're destroying and killing the property, the livestock, and they're destroying the waters up on the mountain. That's what that backhoe was. We did get a glimpse in the back of the backhoe, and they were tearing out the infrastructure. Been up there for over 100 years. They're actually with backhoes tearing the waters and the water, all the piping and the valves and everything, the water tanks and troughs.
Have you rebuilt those?
We have.
I was gonna ask.
It took us a while, but we got it done. We've got them rebuilt. And if we wouldn't have protested during that time, if we wouldn't have made that stand, it's my belief, and we saw their maps and everything, that they were going to tear out every water on that mountain. And they were going to deface the whole land of any human use. That was their goal. And anyway, so back to what happened is on Saturday, everybody started coming. I mean, and next thing you know, we got like 2,000 people there. Right? I mean, thousands and thousands of people. And we kind of had a rally there where we were, we sang the Star Spangled Banner. We Pledge of Allegiance. We had about 60 horsemen on the hill bearing their flags. We had one of the horses didn't have a rider representing those who had died. We had a horse run up the hill carrying the American flag and posted it on top of the hill. Right?
Wow.
And the people understood and felt something that day. And then here comes our sheriff, right? That we had begged him to come out. Well, we said, we're going to have a lot of people here. And basically, we're demanding you to come out. And he comes out and he stands in front of the people and says, I've done this great thing, and now the BLM are leaving. He first of all says, they're going to stop gathering your cattle. And the people were happy, don't get me wrong. Right? Then he says, and they're going to leave. And the undersheriff, Jim Dixon, was standing right next to me. We were on the stage. And he leans over and he goes, it's going to take them about 5 to 10 days. I'm like, okay. Well, let's see what the people have to say about that, right? By this time, the people are understanding, and anybody who was there knows the people were not happy with what was going on. Okay? And basically what happened is there was some time given them to disarm them and to do certain things, and the sheriff didn't do it. And so the people basically said, well, we want to go up and get the cattle. That's what they said. And my dad said, well, go get it done then. And the cowboys came off the hill and started headed about 3 miles where the cattle were. About 3 miles. Cowboys came off the hill and they started heading that way. And it was just like this massive movement of vehicles. Hundreds and hundreds of vehicles started slowly moving and getting up there. And they got on the freeway, and then that's when there was so many people getting on the freeway. The freeway shut completely down.
It was the parking lot.
They get in there, and basically, I could go into detail, but there ended up being hundreds of people, and we confronted them down underneath the bridge. But before we did that, we knelt down and said a prayer. And we asked the Lord to be with us. And then we all got together, and we moved forward and confronted those people. And the whole way they were threatening us, that they would open fire if we stepped one more step. That if we did not disperse, they were going to open fire. This is what their threats were.
So they were still the BLM people then?
Yeah, the BLM. Yeah, thank you. And they were fully armed in their full tack gear. They were in stacking position, ready to fire. And that's what we came to. That's what we came up to. And we went all the way to them. And basically, there was the head of the BLM operations was telling us that we needed to get back down, or they were going to open fire upon us. That this was going to end badly, and we're telling him that we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. We came here to get those cattle and to get you guys out of here. That's what we're here to do. And it was getting very tense. And up on top, my brother was up there. And I know that may not, but there was another about 100 BLM up there with armed guards. And then finally the sheriff's department came and was kind of really didn't know where they should be, and kind of we couldn't tell whether they were on their side or our side, and that's what's going on. And my brother's up on top saying, look, who's in charge here? And there's a man up there, he was in the military for special forces for over 15 years, and he could see down what's going on, and he could see the BLM starting getting into stacking position, which means where they can open fire and not hit each other. Right? That's what the stacking position is. And he starts literally like, it's going to get hot down there. They're going to open fire, and that's the conversation that's going on. And my brother's going, who's in charge here? Who's in charge here? When he's talking to Metro, the sheriff's department. Finally, someone took charge, and they demanded that the BLM stand down, and they did. They sent cars down, patrol down below to where we were. They came through, and it was Deputy Tom Roberts. He came right through the BLM, and all those guards, or all those weapons came right to, and he came right to the fence. And somehow he knew me by name, and he said, Ammon, I'm here to help. What do you want me to do? And at that point, I felt just like completely relieved. I felt like he was an angel, because we were confronting each other. And I stood, and with as loud as I could, I said, pointing to Dan Love, the head of BLM operations, I said, this man does not have authority here. And then I pointed to Deputy Tom Roberts, and I said, this man has authority here. And whatever he asks us to do, we'll do, except for deter from why we came. Right? And he asked us to back up, and he went down, and he demanded that the BLM stand down. And he made them back up, and then the people weren't happy. They were still too close. So I told that to Deputy Roberts. I said, hey, the people still are not happy. They're too close. So he made them back completely up, like way up the wash. And you'll see videos of that when they're doing that. And then the terms were negotiated. We gave them a half an hour. The people gave them a half an hour to get their first vehicle out of there. And they had to be out of there within an hour, the BLM. And sure enough, in 1/2 hour, the first vehicle headed out. And within an hour, 107 vehicles left, BLM.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, 107. And we opened the gates, and the horses went up in there and got those cattle and brought them back through. And the people were lined up on the roads and on the banks there, and while those cattle were going through, it was just silent. And as soon as the last cattle went through, they cheered and cried, hugged each other. It was just a wonderful, if you were there, it was a wonderful experience.
Huh.
And the people felt.
This would make a wonderful movie.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, we've been approached several times, yeah. So but myself and several others, we went up into their compound after that, because it was, and the generators were still running. They had dropped, it looked like there was still personal gear and trash everywhere. They literally just dropped everything. They even abandoned government vehicles. There was government vehicles there. There was anyway, and we went in there, and there was huge corrals, portable corrals, panels. And we went in there, and silently we took every panel apart and laid it on the ground. And it was a symbol that we would never let this happen to us again. We would never let this happen. Okay? And we laid every panel down. It took us several hours. But it was amazing to be there and to feel the freedom of being able to be in that area and being able to have them out of this land. And this freedom was coming back into us, and this feeling of freedom was coming back into us. And it was amazing. And that's pretty much, in a very small nutshell, of what happened. And we haven't seen hide nor hair of them since. Not even one, nothing.
They ever come back and clean up their generators?
They sent contractors to come. Okay? We have never seen or heard from them since. Nothing. Okay? And people are like, "Whoa, wow, isn't that scary?" Well, isn't that frightening? And you might think, well, yeah, it is. But remember how I said the one thing that they do not want to lose, or that they respect, is power. The one thing that they respect is power. And the people did exhibit a lot of power there.
But mostly in numbers and in quiet resistance, not in threatening. Huh?
No, there was the militia did come. People of course the media wants to blow that out of proportion. Mm-hmm. There was a small group of militia that was there, okay, and they were actually asked to stay behind. Okay, there was some that came up on their own accord and was present there, and there was some that actually got up on the bridge, right? And I honestly believe that the BLM, knowing that those men were there, knowing that they had their weapons, it held them accountable. And that was the number one reason why they would not open fire upon us. And if you've ever seen, there's a picture, it's funny because it uses the Bundy Ranch as an example. But there's a picture of these protesters, and they're there and they're getting sprayed by this mace foam, whatever it is, and they're just literally, you could tell they're just in anguish, right? And it says, exercising your First Amendment right without your Second Amendment rights. And then it shows a picture of the Bundy Ranch, and it says, exercising your First Amendment right with your Second Amendment rights. And let's not be afraid of that, okay? I'm telling you, we are a peaceful people. But there is a reason why some of our unalienable rights are the right to bear arms. And if you've read the Constitution of the United States and the Second Amendment, everybody thinks the Second Amendment, all it is about guns, right? Let me read you the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What does it say there? That it is necessary to keep our state free. It's necessary to have a militia to keep our state free. That's what it says. And that they need to bear arms. And you can't take it away. So don't be afraid. That's exactly what happened down there. And it happened peacefully. And it needs to continue to happen that way, peacefully.